This is CBC Here and Now.
Can you tell us what happened and what you're doing to prevent it from happening in the future?
We're not prepared to be public with that right now.
Bringing workers back to come by chance, but questions remain about that flash fire and what went wrong.
This is huge because a lot of us, don't see ourselves in, big organizations.
Celebrating the class of 2022, why Natchwashish and Sheshashi are calling this graduation a massive milestone. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Workers started returning to their jobs today at the Come By Chance refinery, but details about what caused a flash fire earlier this month are still scarce. As Terry Roberts reports, management is reluctant to say much about the industrial accident.
Here's the man running things at the refinery in Come By Chance, emerging this morning from a meeting with union leaders in St. John's. Cordial but tight-lipped.
Mr. Subban, it's been 2.5 weeks since you had this flash fire at your refinery, and you've had injuries. So what happened?
So all I'm prepared to say is we're here today talking to the trade union representatives, and we're discussing a safe return to work, which we're working on at the moment. That's all I'm prepared to talk about, Terry.
Well, can you tell us what happened and what you're doing to prevent it from happening in the future?
We're not prepared to be public with that right now. That's all I get to say, Terry.
Okay, so what about, are people back to work now?
Leaders from various unions arrived one by one at the Trades NL building shortly before 9 this morning, anxious to hear from the brass at Brea. On the agenda, what caused the September 2nd fire, and when will work start again at the refinery? Brea's response to the fire has been carefully managed by a public relations company, with Stump signaling as he headed into the meeting that he would not have much to say to reporters.
Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Good luck.
The meeting lasted more than 90 minutes, union leaders avoiding questions. But Brea released a statement late this morning saying the return to work schedule is fluid with workers returning throughout the week, starting today. Our focus remains on the safety and well-being of workers at the site. 3 different divisions of the provincial government are investigating the flash fire. A stop work order in the area of the refinery where the fire occurred remains in place today. The company has completed its own internal probe and has shared its findings with the injured workers, their families, and some unions. 8 workers were injured. Some received serious burns and other injuries and remain hospitalized. Most workers at the refinery are represented by United Steelworkers Local 9316. Union President Glenn Nolan was not commenting today, but he had this to say recently when asked whether there were prior safety concerns at the refinery.
There was people that had a lot of complaints and that we reviewed them and brought them forward to the company.
Brea took over the former oil refinery late last year and is spending hundreds of millions to convert it into a renewable fuels producer. Among the questions the company won't answer, will the fire and work stoppage delay its plans and drive up costs? Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the west coast of the island is no stranger to storms, but still some are already preparing for Hurricane Fiona. That storm tore through Puerto Rico last weekend, and in just a few days, Fiona's path could cross parts of this province. Here Now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
It's been a little over a week since record rainfall flooded eastern Newfoundland. That saw hundreds of millimeters of rain fall down over 3 days, resulting in minor flooding and washing out a road in Kilbride. And it's been less than a year since a significant weather event washed out the highway connecting Port aux Basques to the rest of the island. Now many are waiting to see what happens with Hurricane Fiona, like the city of Corner Brook.
We're taking our usual precautions when we get extreme weather. So you're looking at, filling a lot of sandbags, doing our catch basins and head walls, making sure they're clear of debris. But we're also doing, because we expect a lot of wind, doing a lot of tree trimming.
Corner Brook is no stranger to unpredictable weather, so city crews there are well prepared.
And it seems to be increasing every winter. The fall is a little easier to deal with because we're not battling ice and snow as well, but every winter. So our crew is well seasoned when it comes to dealing with lots of rain or lots of wind.
But Fiona's path can change quickly. For now, Environment Canada has issued a tropical cyclone statement for the entire island of Newfoundland. Better to be ready.
We'll have people stationed in different parts of the city in known trouble areas, and a lot of people on call, of course, ready to spring into action as we see problems develop.
Marine Atlantic says it's monitoring Fiona as well and has issued travel advisories for the weekend. But if Fiona stays on track, it will impact travel, causing disruptions and cancellations. A spokesperson says ferry users should continue to monitor their website for the latest, and that it will be contacting customers directly if their crossing is canceled. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
And Parsons says residents should report any potential issues to the city right away to allow crews time to clean it up before it becomes a bigger problem.
Well, we'll start with Hurricane Fiona, give you a little bit of an update right now. Currently a Category 3 hurricane affecting Turks and Caicos at the moment with those sustained winds around 185 kilometers per hour. Those winds are gusting around 220 kilometers per hour. Now, over the next couple of days, it's going to head north and track a little bit further east. In fact, intensifying through Thursday or Friday, and then before eventually heading towards our neck of the woods. Now at this point, looking like a strong hurricane approaching the Atlantic provinces, anywhere in that cone. This is about 800 kilometers wide, this cone, so that could be the potential track. There's pretty decent agreement on that at the moment, and that is going to head towards Labrador as well. Now we also have lots to talk about. It's still a bunch of days away, but we also have some frost warnings, frost advisories rather, in place right now. We'll get into the full forecast though when I come back in a little bit.
Well, Hurricane Fiona has already torn a path of destruction through the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. At least 3 people have died in that storm. More than 1 million Dominicans are without water, and most of Puerto Rico is without power. Well, in local health news, the emergency room in St. Lawrence has once again closed temporarily. It shut down at 8 o'clock this morning because of a lack of staff, and the ER won't reopen until Thursday morning at 8. Eastern Health says anyone in the area who needs emergency services should call 911 or go to healthcare facilities in Burin or Grand Bank. There's also a staffing shortage in Whitburn this week. The ER department there will remain closed until next Monday morning. People in that area should also call 911 if they have an emergency, or go to emergency departments in Carbonear, Placentia, or St. John's. Well, an American organization wants people to stop buying lobster and snow crab from Canada. The Seafood Watch program issued a list of seafood it believes people should or shouldn't buy based on sustainability. Now, last month, it red-listed Canadian lobster and snow crab. It says there's potential for North Atlantic right whales to become entangled in fishing gear, but a local biologist doesn't agree.
I've never seen a right whale here, and the last one was this summer. There was one that showed up in Hermitage Bay. There a few years ago there was one down in Bonavista Bay, and there's been sporadic sightings over the years of of right whales, but not a lot. Maybe less 15 or 20 of them. I don't know the exact number is in there somewhere, but they're not animals that really live in our waters.
Well, Wayne Ledwell says he believes this is more of an American problem and that Canada has been unfairly lumped in. And that conversation continues later on Here and Now. The union representing harvesters will also weigh in. In other news, Natwashish and Sheshatshiu are celebrating 2 classes of university graduates. Not only did they complete Nipissing University's 2-year Indigenous Classroom Assistant program, but they did so over the course of the pandemic. The program was offered in the communities, and last week, graduation ceremonies were held for 5 graduates in Natwashish and 8 graduates in Sheshatshiu. Take a look.
This is a huge milestone for our community, for our schools, and one of the reasons is because we want to educate our own people so that they can teach in the schools, so that they can teach Inuimun, or they can teach the culture, and the more we train our own people, then the more success we'll see in our education.
lot of the courses that I did help me help the students better. So it's a really good opportunity, and I'm just glad I took that opportunity to be able to help my school and the children in it. I feel very relieved and like accomplished, because like I didn't think I could do this.
It's pretty big because I didn't finish high school, and I dropped out when I got pregnant with my oldest. And I always said, you know, I would go to school when my girls were a bit bigger. They're 11, 9, and 7 now. So it's pretty big.
My kids are happy for me, my husband, my friends, and I'd like to thank my family and friends for helping out while I was in school too with my kids.
Children, students will see themselves, and I think, you know, this is huge, because these are role models. These graduates will come in and teach their children, their friends' children, and those kids, you know, they're gonna see themselves. So this is huge, because a lot of us, you know, don't see ourselves in, you know, big organizations, or, you know, and then when they see their own people teaching, this will be huge for the little ones.
For the past little while, we have been online mainly, so we are very excited to be able to return in person.
The 33rd annual St. John's International Women's Film Festival is back to being an in-person event. What you can expect to see there later on in the show.
It's going to be another chilly night tonight. Frost advisory in place for a number of areas across the island, as well as a tropical cyclone statement. Welcome to September. We'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Time for a look at the weather, and of course all eyes are on Hurricane Fiona. It battered Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean, and we've also seen damage in Puerto Rico. So Ashley, storms usually lose steam as they travel across the ocean, but that doesn't seem to be the case here.
Yeah, so we typically start to see the storm stop taking its fuel from the ocean, because that is its fuel. It needs 26.5 degree temperatures to continue to fuel the storm. What's going to happen as we head through the next couple of days is it's going to head north, but it still has lots of warm temperatures. It is going to be extratropical, and when that happens, it really spreads out. So it's definitely a storm to keep an eye on, and you can tell by what the warnings are, or at least the tropical cyclone statements. Take a look. They expand all the way from Newfoundland through to Nova Scotia, most of Nova Scotia, PEI, as well as the eastern portion of New Brunswick. And that is, that's not even just everybody that's going to see the effects, but that's where the tropical cyclone statement is in effect at the moment. Taking a look at what's going on right now, showed you this a little bit earlier. I was hoping it was going to update, but it doesn't look like it did. About 185 km/h sustained winds for Fiona right now. Tropical, rather Category 3 hurricane at the moment. And as it tracks further north through the next couple of days, we're going to see an intensification to a Category 4, and then eventually make that turn a little bit further east towards the Atlantic provinces by the time we get into Saturday morning. You can see the official forecast at the moment, but again, we'll update here now probably in about 15 minutes. But at the moment, it's showing Category 2 strength, which is 160 km/h winds. This will be for your Saturday morning. And somewhere landfall in this cone of uncertainty, somewhere between eastern Nova Scotia and the southern and western portion of the island. And there is pretty decent agreement. These spaghetti plots in behind there are a bunch of different models, hurricane models, and the agreement is pretty good between Cape Breton and then the tip of the southwest coast there. So definitely something that keeping a very close eye on. Now, it's really hard at this point to talk about exactly what's going to happen. The track will very much depend on that, but a few things we do know. Timing, Friday to Saturday. So we're going to use this next couple of days to prep your property. Start to trim some trees, put away those loose items. Trampolines, if you haven't done that so far and been enjoying the weather over the last little bit, it's a good idea to use these couple of days to prepare. As far as the rainfall goes, the rainfall is always along the track of the system and then to the left. At this point, at the track at the moment, it does look like the heaviest rain will fall over Nova Scotia, but we could still see some rain moving in on Friday and into Saturday, which could bring those amounts up. So definitely going to keep an eye on that as well. The strongest winds will be along the track and then to the right. The system is really going to expand as it becomes extratropical, and that means we could see the wind field, about 100 km/h winds right across the province. So definitely something to look into. Again, trees are in full leaf, so if we do start to see those types of winds, we could see some power outages with those downed trees. The other thing to keep in mind is the storm surge. Again, that storm surge right along the track and then in that wind wave as well along the south coast. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, the other forecast officially from the National Hurricane Center is where the probability of seeing the sustained winds at 63 km/h. That's tropical storm force. You can see we're talking 70–80% for the southwest coast at this point, but it expands really across the province. A lot less though as you get further east, and then making its way towards the Nova Scotia as well as parts of PEI as well. Now going a little bit further even, this is hurricane force winds, so this would be 110 km/h or 93 km/h sustained winds. Not quite as great of a chance at this point as far as the forecast goes. I do anticipate we'll see this increase though. But again, southwest coast at this point, that's what it's looking like where we will see the most. So right now we have the hurricane to the south, but right now a couple of systems as well that we're keeping an eye on. Area of low pressure over the maritime provinces, ridge of high pressure here in the Newfoundland and Labrador, which is keeping things very quiet tonight. And we're still looking at that potential for some frost through the overnight as well. As far as tomorrow goes, we'll see some clouds on the increase, some rain moving in. Areas along the south coast of the island could see somewhere between 20 and 40 millimeters of rain, otherwise sunshine, the story. And then up across the Big Land, you're looking at your temperatures between 13 and 19 degrees. We'll talk a little bit more about the closer range forecasts and then the long range when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, staying with Fiona, as we mentioned, the Category 3 hurricane dumped heavy rains on Turks and Caicos with winds of up to 185 kilometers per hour. And that's raising concerns about flooding and storm surges as Fiona continues its path north. The CBC's Magda Gabrisalasa has more on the first major storm of the hurricane season.
Hurricane Fiona has left a trail of destruction. At least 3 people have died. Here's some of the damage caused in the Dominican Republic by the strong winds and flash flooding. Hundreds of people are staying in shelters. We do know that more than 1 million households don't have access to water right now. Before that, Fiona hit Puerto Rico pretty hard. About 1,000 people had to be rescued by crews. Power is still down for some 90% of the people, and 2/3 of the population has no access to clean water.
Last night we had no water, no power, barely a little lamp, and no internet. We don't have a way of getting information because we don't have TV, radio, internet, nothing works.
And the governor says it could be days before power is restored for all.
We're still in the middle of this event. We're basically responding at this point. The next step will be recovery. We're not there yet.
This comes 5 years after Hurricane Maria that claimed the lives of about 3,000 people. The recovery from that is still ongoing. Now, with this hurricane, President Biden has declared a federal emergency. He was on the phone with the governor of Puerto Rico yesterday, committing to keeping the aid coming. Some 300 federal personnel are part of the response and the recovery. The governor of New York is also stepping in to send people over there to help.
We'll have over 100 troopers from the New York State Police Department on their way to Puerto Rico over this next week. And as the need continues to rise, we'll be ready to offer other resources and support.
Again, the need is likely to be there for a while. The lives impacted and the damage caused by this hurricane might not be known for days or even weeks. Magda Gabrisalasa, CBC News, Washington.
The province is condemning an American organization for warning people to stop buying Canadian lobster and snow crab. The Seafood Watch program issues a list of seafood it says people shouldn't buy. The group says it gathered input from scientific, government, industry, and conservation experts, and that Canada doesn't do enough to protect the endangered North Atlantic right whales from being entangled in fishing gear. But the province is calling the warning unwarranted and irresponsible. The FFAW agrees. I spoke with a member of the union as well as a marine biologist.
Well, we're very disappointed that they've changed their decision. They used to have this listed as a positive choice there, I guess, a good choice for consumers, to now to change that. And we feel is totally unfounded and not based on the information and the work that's being done to prevent any harm to North Atlantic right whales. Lobster fisheries, certainly in this province, occur very close to the coastline, as they do in most other parts of Atlantic Canada, and the right whales have been seen further offshore. So that, just for example, would lead you to believe that that someone's not seeing the information with respect to lobster in particular.
So as someone who is, dedicated and devoted to rescuing whales that are entangled in gear, do you think that there is an issue off our shores with right whales getting entangled in lobster and snow crab gear?
No, there's not. I've been at this since 1987. There's never been a right whale entangled. There has been one right whale entangled here. That was before my time. It was in 1984 in a cod trap, but that's the only one that's been entangled in our region. And the sightings on them are so sporadic. I mean, we've had the occasion one. We had one here on Hermitage Bay last summer.
I think it's possible that there are right whales off our shores getting entangled in gear that you're just not seeing?
No, I don't think so.
Why is that?
Well, we haven't got the only way we can know if there's an animal that's entangled if someone tells us. And if we haven't seen any fishermen or other people are not reporting seeing any different whale. Occasionally someone will say, yes, we saw a different whale because they know the humpbacks. I mean, really, this is a U.S. problem. They pretty much own these whales. This is where they're becoming entangled, even though the Canadians get blamed on being caught in Canadian waters, which is an easy thing to do. The right whales have a huge problem, not alone through fishing gear. I mean, just where they live. They got huge amounts of trouble, ship strikes, God knows, pollution, inbreeding, small population.
Seismic activity,
everything under the sun, and they're involved they're into it all the time. So, I mean, and there are strict measures in place up in the Northern Gulf for if any one of those right whales is seen up there, they close areas down, huge big swaths of territory closed down for fishing. So I think Canada's done remarkably well in working with these animals to try and prevent entanglements. And plus, there's so little fishing gear in the water here now. Since the cod moratorium, one time they used to say you could walk on the floats, and now you can't. There's very little fishing gear, and quotas are short, so I don't think that should apply to Newfoundland waters. It's not the right whale habitat so far, anyway. I mean, basically, this is a U.S. problem, and we're being put under the gun for it for the most part.
In pointing out all these things, one would have to wonder where the information come from, or why the decision to do this at this point. So we certainly feel again that is unjustified, and we hope that the right information will get out there, and this will be reversed, quite frankly. Right now, their importance can't be overstated. We're looking at this past year, past 2 years, over $700 million in landed value for snow crab, and getting upwards of $80 million for lobster. So most of our products are exported to countries like the United States and abroad. We're hopeful that consumers will look at the information, that the proper information, and see that these species are fished sustainably under formal management plans.
Well, in other news, the 33rd annual St. John's International Women's Film Festival takes place next month, and it will be the first in-person event since the start of the pandemic. This year, the festival will feature films from 11 countries and in 7 languages. Here Now's Aoife Alaba spoke with an organizer and some filmmakers at today's press conference.
How exciting or nervous were you to have this event today?
Oh, we were so excited. The nerves, I think they're put aside just for the fact that we can finally chat about all these films that we've been looking at for months and months on end. So it's really exciting to be able to share the information and let people know what's going to be coming up in a month that they can hang out with their friends and enjoy. For the past little while, we have been online mainly. So we are very excited to be able to return in person, but we also really value keeping things online as well. We understand that that doesn't work for everybody. So we are very proud of the fact that the majority of our films actually will also still be available online. There are some exclusive in-person events, and people can enjoy those in person, and we're also proud to say that for those that are in person, we also do have socially distancing seating as well for folks that may want to avail of that.
Is this your first film?
This is the first film I've officially produced. It was actually through the Picture Start program, which is a program for producers and directors and writers to be mentored through the Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Cooperative. So yeah, it's my first time officially producing. It's the second film I've had in the festival over the last few years.
What would you say the difference is between the second film that you've had officially and the first time?
Well, the first one was a student project and we had $0, so that made a big difference. Bounce was a more professionally produced project for sure. I mean, the highest level one I've ever been associated with as a producer. Normally I'm a camera assistant. So yeah, I mean, it was just a completely different experience. They were both fulfilling in different ways, but yeah, one as a student versus one as more of a professional.
How long did it take you to make this film?
Well, I originally did the script. I wrote the script to be live action, and then I wasn't getting enough funding and I run out of time, and I thought, oh, I'll make it into an animated film. How hard could that be? So 6 years later, my film sees the light of day. I mean, I stopped in between to do Life, but it took 6 years. I had done a short animation workshop of like 4 or 5 days and had played around with plasticine, and I thought, oh, I can do this, but I probably made all the mistakes you can make on a film, and by the time I finished shooting it, I had to go back and reshoot the first third because I'd made all my mistakes on the first third of the film. But I learned how to do it, so.
Any tips for maximum enjoyment?
Maximum enjoyment tips. Okay. Well, we're not anti soft pants. So, if you want to come to Cineplex in your jogger pants, we totally support that. Bring your friends. Bring your colleagues. There's going to be something for everybody. Our shorts play lineups, our playlist lineup are great. There's so many different titles. There's tons of different languages, different perspectives. There's absolutely something for everybody.
My father started the business more than 35 years ago now. My father's kind of moved into a sort of succession mode where myself and my brothers now run the operations of the garden center and the other aspects of the business.
A business being passed down through the generations. Crosstalk host Adam Walsh will bring us inside Murray's Garden Center. That's ahead.
Hi, it's Adam Walsh, host and producer of CBC Crosstalk. It's harvest season here in the province, and we thought, let's do a harvest show. Let's bring the show somewhere to talk about the season, family, connections, food security, a whole bunch of stuff. So we figured, let's come here to Murray's Gardens. Come inside, we'll check it out.
So we're here in Murray's Garden Centre in the Grounds Cafe. What you see here, the physical place, the physical front of the business, the garden centre and the cafe is just part of it. Behind the operation we have about 4 acres in vegetable production, so we're producing different herbs and vegetables to be sold through our cafe as prepared dishes here or as local produce through the cooler that's available here. And we're also a nursery and a garden center, so we're growing out ornamental plants, herbs and vegetable transplants. There's a lot of things on the go as the harvest season is in full swing. My father started the business more than 35 years ago now. My father's kind of moved into a sort of succession mode where myself and my brothers now run the operations of the garden center and the other aspects of the business. And so we've been kind of happily moving forward in that path. Integrating the cafe that happened about 5 years ago now was an effort to bring kind of the fresh local food that we were growing behind the business to the front of the business and make it more accessible to the general population. And yeah, we've had great success with that. People are really interested in local food, in where their food comes from, and supporting local, I find, more and more.
Evan and his brothers represent the 6th generation of Murray's here. We're a century farm, we're probably 2-century farm now. And that's a wonderful asset. It's something we value deeply, to have that asset and to pass it on from generation to generation. And that requires compromise and patience. And so far, I have to say, these young men have done a marvelous job.
When you walk in here, I mean, and yeah, the cafe, I mean, it's a lovely, beautiful space, right? And now I'm thinking, it's like, well, I've got my sons and they're running this operation, and just how, for these multi-generations of your family that's been here, how you fit in the community now and this wider area. Like, what do you think about all that?
I think that's wonderful. I think it's a great opportunity. Connecting to Portugal Cove, St. Philip's like we do is really something that, as I'm in kind of semi-retirement, I'm very involved in environmental committee work, in other committee work in the town. Giving back to the community and involving the community, I think, is really important. Those connections are strong with us. Many of the families in the community here have helped working on the farm, working with us, and without that kind of human resource and uptake from the people in our community to support us, I don't think we'd be as successful as we are. So we tip our hats to the town and say thank you so much for affording us all the goodwill we get here.
Well, in national news tonight, there is a little relief on the inflation front in Canada. Statistics Canada reports the annual inflation rate slowed to 7% in August, down from 7.6% in July. But most people aren't likely to notice that improvement as grocery prices increase to its highest rate in more than 40 years. The CBC's Nisha Patel has more.
At the grocery store, everyone knows it.
Food prices are unbelievably expensive right now.
I gotta tell you, you stop and think before you put it in the basket now.
If you buy something very few or small amount, but you pay very high prices.
Today's inflation numbers show grocery bills are still climbing. The price of bakery products rose more than 15%. Fresh fruit cost 13% more. Fish and seafood prices were up 9%. Meanwhile, many homeowners are coping with higher mortgage costs as interest rates soar.
Obviously, there's a lot of pain for households right now because especially lower income households are spend a greater proportion of their income on food and the basic necessities.
Consumers are paying a little less at the pumps. Gas prices fell almost 10% last month. And around the world, prices for commodities like grain are cooling. That's all helping slow inflation here at home, though most prices are still rising, just not as fast as before. In PEI, Mary Matthews is seeing more families turn to her thrift shop as they try to trim their budgets.
Every household is probably asking themselves, how can I make it this month?
She hasn't raised her prices yet, but soon she may have to.
You still got to pay your rent. You still got to pay your heat and lights.
Jennifer Cullen is here shopping secondhand for her young family.
My kids are very active and they grow very fast, so I'm changing shoes and clothes every 2 months with one of my boys. I can always use one of those.
While this keeps some money in her pocket, she's also cutting back in other ways.
Buying stuff on sale, using our bike more, those sort of things, saying no to Starbucks.
Small changes that could add up to some savings at a time when every penny counts. Inflation has slowed for 2 months in a row, but it's still well above the central bank's target. Experts say it will take much more to convince the Bank of Canada that it can press pause on its interest rate hikes. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, now turning to politics, members of Parliament are back in the House of Commons for the start of the autumn session in the legislature. Today marked the first question period with Pierre Poilievre as leader of the opposition.
The average family could pay their housing bill with 32% of their paycheck every month. Now that's 50% after 7 years of this Prime Minister in power. What's his solution? To raise taxes on paychecks with higher EI and CPP premiums that will shrink paychecks and higher taxes on gas, groceries, and heat. Why won't they cancel these tax hikes so that Canadians can keep a roof over their heads?
Poilievre did not get to go head-to-head with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who was at the United Nations General Assembly. His questions were handled by other members of the cabinet. The Liberals focused on measures they introduced earlier today that are supposed to help families. If passed, the legislation will temporarily double the GST rebate, provide a one-time $500 check to low-income renters, and provide $650 to help cover dental costs for children. Well, some news for sports fans. Former Montreal Canadiens favorite PK Subban has played his last season in the NHL. He announced his retirement today on social media. Subban played 13 seasons in the NHL for the Habs, the Nashville Predators, and New Jersey Devils. The Canadiens drafted Subban in the second round in 2007. He won the Norris Trophy as the NHL's best defenseman in 2013. He captured a gold medal in men's hockey for Canada at the 2014 Winter Olympics in Russia. The 33-year-old racked up 115 goals and 467 points in over 800 games. In a social media post, Subban thanked the NHL, his parents, and his fans. Well, the United Kingdom has now ended its official mourning period for the Queen, and a major operation is underway to deal with the measures that were put in place for the state funeral yesterday. Hundreds of thousands lined the streets between Westminster Abbey and the Queen's final resting place at Windsor Castle. The CBC's Travis Stanrash has more from London.
Well, the barricades are coming down, the roads are slowly opening up, and London is returning to normal. The official mourning period for the UK is now over. However, the royal family will observe another week of mourning for Queen Elizabeth. As part of that observance, they will not carry out any official duties, and flags at royal residences will remain at half-mast until the morning of September 26th. Parliament here in the UK resumes this morning after being paused for 10 days. MPs and Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, face a range of issues from the economy to healthcare and housing.
The biggest worry that everybody has got is the cost of living, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, general security and stability.
A lot of people are going to be suffering this winter from very high food prices and energy costs, of course.
Politics aside, the outpouring of grief for Queen Elizabeth II has not stopped. You'll remember those thousands of bouquets left in Green Park. Well, they continue to grow and will stay in the park for another week before being turned into compost and used across royal parks.
I'm actually blown away by the amount of people that are here. A lot more than I thought. You see it on the news, but when you're here, it's overwhelming.
And everyone just wants to feel like they're a part of it. Part of history.
With the second Elizabethan era now over, King Charles reigns over an ever-changing country. Deep issues and divides which will continue for the foreseeable future. Travis Stanrash, CBC News, London.
It was one of the worst and most severe weather systems in recent history, leaving behind a path of destruction that did millions of dollars in damage. I'm talking about 2010's Hurricane Igor. Dozens of communities called for a state of emergency during that storm. Hundreds had to leave their homes. Well, today is the 12th anniversary of that storm. So here's a look back at some of the damage done, but also how the province and the country banded together.
Some of the images were nothing short of apocalyptic. If there were any concerns that people might not be moved to respond, they were unfounded. The Red Cross's first order of business at the time was immediate emergency response. Blankets, water, personal care kits, cleanup kits, food, shelter. The bill for that was $185,000. The rest of the money, $500,000, was spent on providing further help to 218 families. Since the Red Cross doesn't hand out cash, most of that came in the form of gift cards, vouchers, and other donations to cover a wide range of needs as people were struggling to put their lives together again.
It left too many buildings damaged, too many lives and livelihoods in disarray. Bill Donovan is still looking for the pieces of his.
So there's a couple outboard motors in under this somewhere, my chainsaw.
Heavy rain swept away the ground under his workshop, destroying a year's catch of fish drying inside, $3,500 worth, taking the entire two-story building out to sea.
This is part of it. This part came ashore here.
Donovan himself would have been carried off into the bay if he hadn't been pulled ashore by friends at the end of a rope.
So halfway across, I got knocked down by a rock, and then I got under the water, and then I got hit by another rock. And
Is that what happened to your shoulder?
Yes, yeah.
His shoulder will heal, he tells me. The rest can be patched up, but his fish business may never recover.
So I'll tell you, Sasha boy, it's a mess.
The mayor of Port Union and the communities around it
This is the bridge.
shows me just how big a mess it is. Demolished as if by an earthquake. Damage to infrastructure the town itself just can't afford to fix.
These folks were a sight for sore eyes to many Newfoundlanders in the past 2 weeks. They're what's left of the more than 1,000 Forces personnel who took part in the Igor relief effort.
On September 21st, our province faced a challenge unlike any we have ever encountered, certainly in this century. We, as the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, send you a sincere thank you.
In Trody, soldiers stitched together a town divided by the force of the hurricane.
The unofficial motto of the Army's military engineers is first in and last out. And you went to work immediately and never stopped till the early hours of this morning.
And that took some strain off provincial resources. Some of these soldiers are Newfoundlanders.
It was a privilege for myself and many other of my friends here from Newfoundland. We all felt privileged to be here and help out our fellow Newfies.
And a chance to experience Newfoundland hospitality and appreciation.
A lady out near Trouty, she had a little bake shop, and she would get her husband to bring boxes of baked goods over for the soldiers as they were working on the bridge out in Trouty. It's been terrific.
There's still so much rebuilding left to do, but for these exhausted military men and women, their job here is done.
Wow, can't believe it's been 12 years. And just a correction though, the hurricane actually hit 12 years tomorrow. The 20th is when we were getting the warnings from the Hurricane Center. So yeah, 12 years. I'm sure lots of people in the province remember that.
And lots of, things came of that as well, which is really good with the infrastructure and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That might help us out this time around with Fiona on the way.
Yeah, it certainly will, or might, I should say. Still lots of things up in the air to determine, but the good thing is we do have a couple of days of weather, good weather,
to
prepare. So let's take a look. We'll jump right into the forecast for tomorrow. Some rain will move in along the south coast. You could see somewhere between 20, maybe as much as 40 millimeters possible in some of the heaviest rain. But overall, we should see the sun for central, well, really the rest of the province at this point. And temperatures into the teens through the day, up across Labrador as well. Your temperatures should be sitting in the teens through the afternoon. If you take a look at the temperatures as we head into Thursday, temperatures will start to cool down for parts of Labrador, but otherwise into the 20s for central and west coast, and staying in the teens. But things are going to start to get unsettled as we head into Thursday, and then certainly as we head into Friday, much more gray skies. Temperatures will be between 18 and 21 degrees through the day across the island, and then up across Labrador, temperatures will be a bit cooler, 6 degrees in Lab City, in fact. And we're going to start to talk about the potential for some snow in the mix for your forecast as well. So the long range outlook will just show you what's happening. I showed you the temperatures, but so there's that rain for tomorrow. That will move through fairly quickly. Things will be unsettled up across the big land, but there's that potential for some snow. It may make its way a little bit further south, but northern Labrador, you're looking at that potential. This is actually all going to be some moisture as well out ahead of Fiona, so we'll see some periods of rain through the afternoon on Friday, and then this is when the main event moves in. At this point, showing a very strong system that is going to expand. You can see just how large the system really is, extending pretty much from Nova Scotia all the way through to Newfoundland and Labrador by the time we get into Sunday morning. And those isobars, they're very tight, and that means that we will see some fairly strong winds with this as well. That system will continue to track further north. Then we start talking about the chance of some snow for you in Lab West. A couple of models pointing at that, definitely going to keep an eye on that, but the winds will still be fairly strong as the system continues to move across Labrador as well, with those winds gusting potentially in excess of 60 or 70 kilometers per hour by the time we get into Monday. Taking a look at the long-range forecast, temperatures in the teens for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. And then we're looking at those windy conditions through central and western again on your Saturday. Things will eventually clear out as we get into Sunday afternoon. For eastern Labrador, you're looking at windy conditions right through the weekend, and same thing for the west. I had to show this photo just before we leave here. Great shot, nice spot to watch the rainbow there, or look at the rainbow, I guess, the North River. Thank you to John and Rhonda. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca, and I will be keeping you posted on all platforms over the next little bit.
Excellent, excellent, yeah. We'll be watching for sure. And thank you for watching the show this evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good night.